Without a doubt, the most frequent question I get when using Unliving Portraits, how do I get all three of those videos to play at the same time? Whether it's the Unliving Tombstones with our three dead haunts, or the lonely haunter that walks across the top floor of my haunted house facade, the question I get is, how do you make that happen? Well, I'm finally going to answer that question today. In the front, you'll see two video players that I use in my haunt. On the left is the Sprite player, and on the right is a Brightsign video player. I use these two video players because I can easily integrate them with any controller that I might be using to set up a particular scene. In the back, you can see two controllers that I have used in my haunt. On the back left, there is the Flex Max, and on the right is a Pico FX. Both of these I bought from a great company called Fright Props. Now, when looking at the two video players, they'll both do the same thing. When triggered, they will play a pre-programmed video and sound effect. The main difference, however, is that the Sprite is mainly a standalone triggered video player, while the Brightsign can be used to provide synchronized effects like Unliving Tombstones. When discussing video players, I can tell you right now, these two are more on the pricey side of the video players out there. The Sprite right now, I believe, is around $150. It was far less when I bought it, closer to $100. And the Brightsign, which right now is a eye-popping $500. When I bought these, they were less than half the price of that. However, don't think you're going to have to shell out a lot of dollars if you want to go the Brightsign solution. I'll talk about that a little later on. Depending on the effect you're trying to achieve, that will indicate what kind of video player you might need. Now, if all you're doing is doing a single video effect, say just one of the characters in Unliving Portraits, then there are far cheaper solutions on the market than either the Sprite or the Brightsign. Just looking on Amazon, you can see right here, there's several versions of video players that are far cheaper. These are along the lines of $30 to $40, $50, provide the same effect. It's a single trigger video player. With these kind of video players, what you can provide is a portrait of the woman from Unliving Portraits who rapidly ages and decomposes when triggered. These are a nice, inexpensive solution for that kind of effect. On the other hand, if you are looking to synchronize a video effect using all three portraits from Unliving Portraits, then you need to go to a solution such as Brightsign. Brightsign is a programmable video player that will allow you to keep multiple separate video feeds in sync for whatever desired effect you want to achieve. There is another solution besides Brightsign that will allow you to do multiple synchronized video displays, and that is using the Raspberry Pi 4. It will allow you to provide the 3-sync video feeds that you need for Unliving Portraits, and just like with the Brightsign video player, you will need a Raspberry 4 for each of your video feeds. So in this case, you'll need 3 Raspberry Pi 4s. If a Raspberry Pi 4 is too expensive, you can also use the Raspberry Pi Zero. However, because the whole concept of the Zero is the cheapest computer you can get on a mini form, and in this case it's like around $25, the video that is provided by the Zero is full HD. However, it does not support switching between videos very well. So if you try to play multiple videos from the Raspberry Pi Zero, in between each video you get a blank screen displayed. There is absolutely no way to avoid that. It is an artifact that is part of the video output of the Zero. The Raspberry Pi 4, on the other hand, is a full-blown graphics processor chip in there, so you can stream multiple videos in a row and there will be no screen flash between each video. Briefly discussing the Raspberry Pi solution, you would need to download an app called the Falcon Player, which allows you to sync multiple video feeds from Raspberry Pi 4s. Here's the page you need to subscribe to and stay informed about how to use the Falcon Player. This is a good source to understand how to use it, and also a source to get some of your questions answered. Here is a close-up of the URL in order to access this page. This page provides an overall guide on how to install the Falcon Player on your Raspberry. There's several YouTube videos that go through how to do the install, how to figure it, how to use it. So you should have little to no problems implementing Unliving Portraits on the Raspberry Pi 4 if you decide to go with that solution. If you do decide to go with the Raspberry Pi solution, there's a couple of points that I want to make. One, the Raspberry Pi solution requires a network connection. Make sure that when you set up your Raspberry Pi network that you can access your house network. And the other thing that also points out that I mentioned previously, for weaker Raspberry Pi versions such as the Zero, you cannot avoid getting that black screen between video plays. The way that the Falcon Player works on the Raspberry Pi 4 is that it will send out a sync frame every so often to all Raspberry Pi 4s on the network to sync up on this particular frame, and that will resync all the videos on every one of the Raspberry Pi 4s. The worst effect that you might see is a slight stagger as all of the videos line up with the same video frame, but honestly it would be so quick that I doubt that you would even notice that resync. As I mentioned earlier, I went with the Brightsign solution, and I did this years ago when I built my Halloween facade for the front of my house. It's a 2-story Gothic mansion, and across the second floor of this facade are 5 windows. Each window has a TV in it. I also have a projector on the lower floor that projects onto the opening of a family crypt that I had built. I synchronized the video displays of all 6 of these devices. So that's 5 TVs and a projector. What inspired me for this upper story display was the last line from the 1963 version of The Haunting. Here it is.
Hill House has stood for 90 years and might stand for 90 more. Within, walls continue upright, bricks meet, floors are firm, and doors are sensibly shut. Silence lies steadily against the wood and stone of Hill House, and we who walk here walk alone.
That closing line had always haunted me since I was a kid. It was one of the first Halloween displays that I ever thought up that I definitely wanted to implement once I was old enough and rich enough to do so. Here in this video, you can see the effect that I created for the upper story of my haunted house facade. Each one of these TVs is controlled by buy a Brightsign video player. There's the 5 TVs for the windows that comprise the second story of the haunted house facade, and the 6th little TV is a stand-in for the projector that displays in my family catacomb entrance. You watch, he slowly moves his way from window to window across the entire second floor of the haunted house facade. Again, this effect was achieved using 6 Brightsign players networked together and programmed to display this lonely gentleman slowly walking across the second floor of his house. Just an FYI, this is the head of the house from the Ghostly Apparitions volume that's provided by AtmosFx. So this is my homage to that great 1963 movie scene from The Haunting. So now the question arises, what about the cost of this Brightsign solution? I mean, these things now go for over $500 a piece. I simply can't afford it, and I totally agree with you. However, there is a solution for this, and you gotta trust me, it's a valid one, and it's one that works, and it's one that I've used already a couple of times, and it's called, yes, eBay. Before I scare you off in the middle of this video because I'm suggesting you might have to buy used from eBay, let me just make a few points here in why this is really a good solution and affordable one. First off, these Brightsign players, I wish you could feel them. They're very well constructed, very heavy for their size. You can tell they're solidly built, and not only solidly built, but solid state, which means no moving parts. It doesn't wear out. The only thing that could possibly affect this would be excessive heat or excessive force. I've already bought 8 of these Brightsign players off of eBay. Every single one of them is working to this day. Never had to return a single one, and I never had a single one fail. But before you hop on eBay and type in Brightsign player and start picking and choosing, let me give you some information about Brightsign players for the Unliving Portrait solution. In the shot, you can see listed various models of Brightsign players, and there's a lot of them, but the ones that we want to concentrate on are on the left hand side, and that is the HD family. And the HD family consists of these models of Brightsign players. As video technology changes, so do the Brightsign players. The first version of the HD line was the HD 222 and 1022. It was their first 1080p 60 hertz refresh. It was full HD. However, shortly after the 222 came out, Brightsign changed the form factor of the HD series to the current version you see right now. That model was the HD 223 and the HD 1023. It too was full HD. It was 1080p 60 hertz refresh. For the AtmosFx videos, the 222 and the 223 versions of the Brightsign player are perfect for those videos since the resolutions match perfectly. However, when 4K came out, Brightsign discontinued the 223, 1023, and came out with their HD 224, 1024 line. So this was again full HD, but in this case it supported 4K. And then when the HDR version of 4K was released, Brightsign released their new product line, which was the HD 225, 1025 versions of the Brightsign players that supported 4K HDR. So as I said, as the new versions came out, they discontinued the older versions, and so the older versions that I'm using and that I'm proposing you use as well are only available used, and fortunately are available on eBay at not only at a good price but a good deal overall. The only rule that you really have to follow when using Brightsign players is that they are all members of the same family. So for example, you can mix and match HD 222s and HD 1022s and they'll work together fine in a network. Same thing with the HD 223s and the HD 1023s, and so on with the 224s, the 1024s, and the 225s and 1025s. You don't want to mix and match them because, as you can see in the display, each family has a different version of BIOS which interprets the Bright Author software that we use to program the Brightsigns. So you want to make sure that each player in the network is interpreting the Brightsign software in the same way, and the only way you can do that is by them having the exact same version of BIOS, and that means they be in the same family. So with that information in hand, let's go ahead, get on eBay. In this case, I put in my Brightsign player, so I typed in Brightsign HD 224. Here's an example of one 224 player for sale on eBay for 75 bucks. Great deal. Cheaper than a lot of the players that are brand new. But the one thing you want to do is you want to look at the seller and see how that seller does business. Now, in the case of this one seller, it's 100% positive. He's done over 1,000 transactions, so you can pretty much depend on that. That'll give you an idea of whether or not this seller is reputable or not, and this one appears reputable. Another thing to look at is whether or not they offer any kind of a guarantee, like 30-day guarantee, that if something goes wrong, it doesn't work on delivery, or it dies within that period, you can return it, get your money back. The only thing you're going to have to do, though, you may have to pay the return shipping out of pocket. There is always the chance that they may even cover that return shipment payment, but you'll have to look and see that. Many times, though, you're buying as is, and that means they're guaranteeing it's going to work. They don't take any kind of refund. There's no way to return the product. Fortunately, eBay itself will refund your money by going through them instead of the vendor. However, if you look at this vendor with 100% rating, you can pretty much guarantee that whatever he ships is in working order. But notice that he doesn't take any returns once you place that order and he ships. You'll also notice that you can get protection through Allstate Insurance for 10 or 11 bucks, but that is another way you can protect your purchase. In most cases, you're only looking at maybe $50 to $75 per device, depending on how long you're willing to wait. These deals here go real quick, so I advise you, especially in the case of a 224, because they go very fast, that you make it a habit of checking on a regular basis so that you can make sure you purchase however many of these Brightsign players you need for your particular video effect. But if you're just looking for a Brightsign player to run videos in standard 1080p, then I suggest look at the HD 223 and 1023 video players as your solution. As you can see here, for this one, you can see you can get them $50 a piece, and in this case, they had 7 for sale. So far, only 1 sold. That means 6 are available. It's great when you can buy them all in one bunch from the same seller, and the 223 is usually right around 50 bucks, even a little less, and they're a solid choice for this solution. But I am pretty sure that as long as you diligently monitor eBay, you should easily get a set of video players from the same family of Brightsign players, most likely within a week. I see a lot of these last for maybe 2-3 days. Sometimes they're up there for a while because they're asking for a ridiculous price. I've seen still to this day, the 224 models are listed for over $200. You can easily find them from other sellers for $100 or less. The key when buying these used video players, check the vendor, make sure they've got good reviews, that they're reputable, see what kind of offers they make, like 30-day money back if the product doesn't work, and that's always an extra bonus. We discussed video players, everything from the $39 to $50 Amazon versions of video players for single video effects to the Raspberry Pi version of synchronized video for the Unliving Tombstones, and finally the Brightsign video players. I hope this at least gives you enough information to choose what kind of video player you need for your particular effect. In the next how-to video, I'm going to delve deeper on how to use the Brightsign players as well as the programming software for them called Bright Author. If you have any questions at all about video players or actually anything about haunted house effects, shoot me a PM at my Facebook page, hashtag Schmitz Haunted Yard. That's Schmitz Haunted Yard, SCHMITZ. And thanks again for watching.